Good morning. And welcome to our panel. When Catherine Jordan, that is she to whom nobody says no, asked John Baker and I to put together a panel on Antiochians protesting. Well, protesting that which blocks victories for humanities. We thought, although it would be good and fun to talk about the past, we're both organizers. We both spent our life bringing people together to fight for equity, equality, freedom. We felt it was more important to talk about what Antiochians, that's us, are doing today in many, many fights that we have before us. And there were many fights to choose from. But we chose the attack on public education, fighting back against the attack on public education. First of all, because our own Horace Mann helped establish the public school system. And secondly, because a disproportionate number of Antiochians go into education. But most important is because most of us have children, grandchildren, some have great-grandchildren in the public schools. And this is about them. That was John's brilliant insight, to choose education. Where is John?
Out in the hall.
Oh, there he is. There's John. He is the godfather behind all of this that we're doing this morning.
All right.
When we take on the various fights that we have today, everything from fighting voter suppression to bringing women back to becoming property of the state, not having control over their own bodies, to having people tell us that we're not Americans. We have a tendency, I think, to say, when we're fighting against these evils, to say that, well, we are defending democracy, our democratic rights. I think that's a little bit mistaken to see things that way. What we are doing is creating democracy. Our democracy, the boys that set up our democracy, after all, they were business people. And they were pissed that Britain was cutting into their profits, their potential profits. And they set up a country and a constitution mainly to protect against that. I don't know if they had the term then, free enterprise. To have a real free enterprise system so that you could get rich in America, not just in Britain. The originalists on the Supreme Court are right. They're correct. There's very few rights that are explicitly stated in our Constitution. Using our laws that were declared constitutional at one time, people have been prevented from voting. Working people have been kept in semi-slavery. And our schools have been controlled over the years. When I was a kid in high school, during the McCarthy period, I wanted to do a book report on Freedom Road by Howard Fast. I couldn't. He's a communist, you can't talk about that. That we can't talk about, that has come back to us. Can't talk about a lot of things. And remember the Scopes trial in Tennessee in the 20s. The teacher wanted to teach evolution, and he could not. He was found guilty in that trial. Our our school systems are set up as part of our general systems. There is no right to education in our Constitution. That's something we, the people, created. Just like we created the right to vote. Remember, when the country started out, you were a white man that owned land. That was it. And the other rights were won. If you constrict teaching in schools to, quote, knowledge passed down by preachers or by individual leaders, you can establish a mindset in our children that is very much open to dictatorship. The only truth is truth passed down, not truth you find through intellectual pursuits. And overall, that's the purpose of the attack on education. Before, during the McCarthy period, it was kind of clear, the country was restricting the way people think about various economic systems. Today, it's a lot worse. Today, people who are attacking our public schools have a vested interest in charter schools and making a profit. And as I said, there's no right to public schools in the Constitution. There are people who are controlling our media. It used to be we had Walter Cronkite and Edward R. Murrow. They were considered neutral in a way. People trusted them. They were free to express the truth. Today, not. Today, news is part of the education system, part of the entertainment system. And the newscasters, either the left or the right, it's not news, it's their opinions, and that's what's accepted. And that's under that circumstance, it's very difficult to fight for intellectual integrity in schools. It's very difficult to get across the point that maybe truth comes from search, not from listening to somebody else. And yet, written into our system, probably because the guys that set us up felt it was good for business, there are ways to create democracy within our system. And there are ways now to fight to keep our schools public, free from restrictions, and to serve all our people. And also to become desegregated. Our schools have become resegregated. I work in Mississippi, and the public schools are almost 100% black, and the charter schools are almost 100% white, and they get the same amounts of money from the state, the private schools. So given that there's a chance to fight this, John and I were just certain that there were Antiochians out there on the forefront of this fight. Just like there are Antiochians on the forefront of every other fight. And we put out the word through emails, through newsletters, and sure enough, we came up with two of the people that are leading the fight for free schools in the United States. One is right beside me. She is State Senator Lisa Wellman from Washington State. She is the chair of the Early Learning K-12 Education in the Senate. And when she talks, she's going to talk about the many ways that she is fighting for freedom in schools. And also, we have with us, behind us, unfortunately, Leon is under the weather, but he has forced himself to come forward and to participate. Leon was a K-12 teacher for 10 years in Virginia. He taught ESL and U.S. history. And he presented many papers at conferences on topics such as the challenge of teaching social studies, to teaching English language learners, talking about the effect of standardized testing, and also how to teach about the Cold War. More recently, he's been in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and the right wing took over in Gettysburg, and he'll talk about that more. And he is on the forefront now as an advisor to the Board of Education of fighting that. To me, it's very ironic that the fight for freedom is continuing in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. But Leon, could you chime in now and tell us more about what you're up to?
Leon's full name, please.
I'm sorry. Leon Reed. Leon Reed. He's in the class of 71. Professor Reed? Does anybody here know anything
I
about
may
it?
find it too complicated to share my screen.
We can see you.
We can see you.
We can see you. We can't hear you that way.
No, he wants to share his screen.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, we see it.
Has he been given permission to share? I think he was
Yeah.
given permission to share his screen.
I can just talk.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's not Zoom, so he doesn't know where to share the screen is moved on
It's
this.
already shared, he just needs to find where the presentation is.
Yeah, click on that thing that you were covered on.
There's nothing remarkable about it, so I think I'll just.
Audio is not good.
Thank you very much. I wish it could be that. As with, and it is ironic to find Gettysburg, a primary commute.
Leon, could you hold on for 1 second? Does anybody here know about this technology or know where the people who
It's
do are?
probably on his side, the Wi-Fi, and if he turns off his video, it might save
That's what I was-
some of the
yeah.
bandwidth.
Turn off the video.
Well, here's audio better.
Yeah.
Turn off the video.
I don't know why. Leon should turn off his own.
Turn off
It's
the
a
video.
Can you
bandwidth.
hear that? Okay.
We will win this fight only if technology is not involved.
Yes.
Oh, his video, his audio wasn't clear.
Turn his
Yeah.
audio off.
Leo, try talking again so we can hear you, see if it works.
Hello?
Yes, much
Yes.
better. Go ahead, Leo. Leon.
Gettysburg has been a center of culture wars now for 2 years, since July 2020, when 1,000, sort of a dress rehearsal for January 6th, seized Gettysburg National Military Park on 4th of July in response to an existing rumor that Antifa was coming to destroy Confederate monuments.
Can I miss the subtitles?
It has become a little bit of a shrine.
Catherine, are the technology people still around?
I think it's on his end, but I'll go.
The technology problem is on his end. Yeah.
Well, maybe somebody can explain to him.
One thing he could do is to log out and call
If they can zoom in on the
in.
subtitles, we don't need to see the other stuff. If there's a way to do that, that would
He
be.
could hang up and call
You
the
could
phone
ask
number
him
on
if
his
he has
phone.
Ethernet capacity. Ask him if he has Ethernet capacity.
Did you hear that?
Doesn't?
Best suggestion is to hang up and call back
Yeah.
on a landline
Yeah.
or a mobile line.
Oh, sorry.
All my
So
phone and
how
I
can
can
we all
cover
see
by
that?
the
I can't read it.
Okay, I'll tell you what, well, I can leave that.
I'll see
Yeah,
that.
there's a number on the link.
Leon,
Yes.
call my number, 301 775-0106. And cut the audio off.
It's,
said there's a number on it. Yeah, I'm
sometimes they're coming from somewhere, they could be involved. And they're coming from every other See them more?
Good, how are you?
Really like to have a nursery. Can't.
We have a young person who might know.
Oh, a young person. Yes.
Should be around still. Just tell them that you're heard.
Great.
And then we can take it.
I can't turn on my television anymore without my daughter. Okay.
It's not gonna be better if he's on
He's a bonus. Thank you for telling me.
You can call into this actual software.
Okay.
But if we could make the subtitling bigger, it would help a lot.
Hello?
Let's see.
But we don't need to see any of it.
Okay, we have new instructions. Call in on where?
Rick, do you know how to find the phone number he should call to?
It should be on the invitation that he received for this link to this. And
Well, I'll tell you what, I hate to do this.
Can you?
I hate to do this,
Put him
but,
on speaker and see if you can hear
well,
it.
she says it'll be worse.
Having him on speaker through the microphone is gonna be
Could I
worse.
suggest that
video.
while we sort this out, let our other
Well,
speaker go ahead?
Exactly.
here's the thing, we don't want to do two things at once, because this is a kind of a noisy process. But I'll tell you, Leon, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a number that he could
Oh,
call
there it is.
to speak with somebody from the technology end?
I don't go here, I don't work here. I'm just a guy, just like you.
If you give me Leon's number, I'll call him.
Well,
They're an IT person.
I'm trying, Eric.
Sure, something, right?
Here we go.
Yeah.
It's his screen, it's his,
Sharing a screen.
Okay, can now, Leon, could you now speak through the computer?
Can people see the subtitles?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Not really. If there's somebody that can work with Leon on the side, what's that?
How about,
Leon's phone number.
Here. Okay, if you can, yes,
Doesn't make it bigger if the other thing's big. So
if you could, take that to the side, and then,
But then we won't get the.
okay, thank you. Okay, now I think we're going to go, while we're trying to figure out Leon, Senator Liza Wellman of Washington.
okay, everybody here? Yeah. Lisa Zelumer, who married Terry Wellman, an Antiochian, and would have been class of '65. And so I have come to you right now from Washington, D.C., where I was attending the commission, the Education Commission of the States, which includes legislators from across the country as well as policy staff and other staff
okay, I think I just did.
focused on education. So shall I keep going? Or do you
No, I guess it's complicated enough, so I guess if Leon is squared away, let's continue. Because to get back to it later is going to be,
We're hearing it pretty well now.
okay. Let's, Leon, can you start?
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, Lisa, we'll come back to this. This is why I start the typewriter.
Nobody can hear.
Leon, say something. Talk.
He's gone. Wow.
Hmm.
He muted himself.
Well, we lost his screen and he's not speaking, so what?
Okay, well, that's good.
We'll go back, okay. At this, I'm bringing this up because at this meeting, we had one state that was awarded Innovation Prize for the outstanding work that they've done in education for students, and the state was California, which was mind-blowing in terms of the things that they have accomplished and the money that they have put into, actually they're the 5th largest economy in the world, so they do have a lot of money and they're putting it into education. And accepting the award, I share with you, was Gavin Newsom, which was quite interesting because he started off with, we are in a war of education, and he let loose on Florida, on Ohio, on other states that have been banning books and that have been, really doing things in terms of suppression of speech that we certainly don't believe in. And for the last number of years, and it's just gotten worse, as you all know, it is hurting schools, it's hurting students, it's hurting educators, and it's hurting education in the United States. When I toured the state as chair of education, early learning chair of education, touring the state, making sure that I speak to 9 districts. We have 295 school districts in the state of Washington. And as I tour them to speak, to hear somebody say to me, it feels like our communities are out to get us. And the trauma that has been happening with students, of course because of COVID, but with teachers because of this war that has been putting them, who have dedicated their lives to the students. Started off as a teacher myself and switched to a career in technology, but it's all about teaching people about things for me. And to watch them be at the core of this is just so painful. And to watch the lies, because they lie, just bottom line, they lie. It is all about misinformation. It's like misinformation has been given a free pass today. And we have to puncture those lies. I think of them as big balloons, and we have to come in there with, sharpness, with truth and with facts, and puncture those balloons. For me, protesting means doing what I do and get to do, and making a difference, hopefully making a difference. And so a lot of what we have been doing over the last several years has been to create environments through law, and I'm very lucky to be in a state, we are a trifecta. There are not that many, but we have the governorship in both houses. And we switched that the 2nd year that I was in office. And boy, what a difference it makes. Let me tell you what we're able to do because we are a trifecta. So we're trying to make it so that there's an environment where people can learn about, hear about accurate information about schools, about what's happening, create safe, supportive, and culturally responsible environments for the children and the teachers. And we have been enacting a number of bills that have come through over the last several years to really help that effort. I will tell you that I have an edge as far as speaking within my state. And we are, when I go to the eastern part of the states, to the more rural part of the states, it is bullying country. It is bad news out there. But my edge is that I started off as a teacher, although I've had a 35-year career in tech. I was vice president for worldwide markets for Apple Computer, and spent 10 years in economic development in the state of Washington, in rural Washington. So although I live in the Seattle suburbs, I have been out there talking to the people. They know who I am. I'm not somebody who just is coming in from Seattle saying this is what to do, but I'm working on economic development in their communities, and that has helped a lot. I think also that 5 years working with the public and trying to share information with the public through the PTA and through other means, working with school board members. We have Washington, the Association for School Boards. I'm sure your communities have them as well as with the superintendents, the principals, and the teachers. And that gives me an edge. Plus, very frankly, I have a platform. And the reason that I ran for the Senate when I was asked if I would was because when I was at Apple, I had a platform. And boy, when you can be in a place where you can make a difference in people's lives with a platform, it really is transformative. And so when I was in my 70s and starting to think, you know, how can I be relevant? How can I be seen? Women become very invisible as we age, and so being given the opportunity to have a platform was really empowering. And because I have a platform, I have a means of communication. I actually have a comms person who works with me. Now, what I'm saying is about all of your legislators have these, Republican or Democrat or Independent, they have these abilities as well. So I have an online presence, a website as a senator, a Twitter feed, a Facebook page. I work with the PTA. I have videos that I create and send out through the PTA. I have email mailing lists to thousands of people that have signed up for my newsletters, and so I have these means. And as I said, I travel the state around once a year to make sure that I'm speaking to teachers, parents, whatever. It's doing the job, right? It's what's needed. And I think that what we must do is, if you can't do it yourself, then we have to make sure we get the platforms, or we help people get the platforms, whether it's bringing people from the community that you, younger people that you know who are exciting, intelligent, think the way that we think. We need to get them on the school boards. This is the things that we've been talking about, that Larry was mentioning, didn't start yesterday. I mean, going back to Gingrich and even before Gingrich, who had this vision of how they could do a takeover. It's been a long road. And we need to know that they are after school board seats, and when they get them, it is really hard. But there are seats on the city council. There are city boards that in whatever board you're on, and it may not be a school board, but whatever board you are, you have a title. You can go out and talk. You can have the reach into the community. There are state boards, and actually, as I said, I did economic development meetings because every state has at least 40 or 60 boards that are part of the state. I was on the Community Economic Revitalization Board, and that gave me a place where I could visit the state and talk to people. So there are board seats that they would love to have you on that may match up with with experience that you've had over the course of your life. Those seats are open. You can apply for them. You can be appointed to them, and they pay for your expenses. There's no salary. Also working with the PTA, whether you have kids, grandkids, great-grandchildren, whatever, the PTA is reaching out to the parents in the community and is a great way to do that. And of course, precinct committee officers. When I started, when I came to the state, I've always been a precinct committee officer wherever I've lived in 13 different places, because it gives me an opportunity to work with a legislative district. And I hope all of you are aware of who your representatives are within your state, who your mayor is, whoever your local people are. One of the things that I have found as far as the way I'm approaching this, and again, as a legislator, because I am, is I'm looking at messaging, and very frankly, I'm looking to cool the rhetoric. It is just blasting out there, and people really don't appreciate the fact that they're being pounded. They really would like to hear a story. They'd like to hear, what could I do? What is really happening? And so we've created our public schools to support our societies. And very frankly, while we're Antiochians, and I know this is strange for Antiochians, but right now, business is your best ally. Business wants young people coming out of school who have critical thinking. You may have heard this. This is a mantra. I can say it over and over again. Who are collaborative, who can work together cooperatively, who have critical thinking skills, you know, when somebody comes to me for a job, and I've hired hundreds of people, when they come for me to a job, I see them because they can do the job. But do I want them on my team? Are they somebody who can give me a full day's work, who have a really good work ethic, who have creativity? It's not as much as where are they going to get that? If not, we don't support that in our schools. And critical thinking is not what they want. They don't want kids to have critical thinking. They want them, here's the book, learn the book, narrow your mind right here and just do it. It doesn't help America, it doesn't help business, it doesn't help our economy, and it's not the future, for sure. One of the things that I think that people don't understand, and when I talk to parents, I talk about this, is this is not a school system. I'm in the process of transforming our school system, because we have had a school system that I went to, that you went to, that my grown children have gone to, which was for an industrial age. We ain't there anymore. We are in a digital economy. And so what I'm doing is making sure that we have a strategic plan for computer science, that every kid in the state has digital literacy, and even more important right now, that they have digital citizenship, that they know what the hell is going on when they go onto TikTok and Facebook. And we see that they're being liked. I don't know if you know, but Facebook, when Facebook came out, it had a very popular response from the community. What turned the needle for Facebook was when they did this thing called likes, when you could like a page, when you could like somebody's statement that they posted on your page. And Facebook went from here to here. And once they saw that, yeah, I got it. Once they saw that, they said, let's tweak those, the technology, let's tweak the code that we're using. And let's make sure. I don't know whether you got that many likes. My daughter is so excited. She's got 5,000 people who like her on TikTok. I said, how do you know? You don't know who the hell they are. What if China, which is TikTok, what if China says, look, we're twisting those little pleasure buttons in the brains and saying, and she runs and she says, oh, I got 20 more likes. How the hell did you get 20 more likes? Maybe the software is putting those likes in there. And that's how our kids are being manipulated to go into these and then get this narrower and narrower view of what's happening. So regardless of what field anybody is going into, when I first started in doing economic development around the state in agriculture, and I did a lot because we need refugees, one of the things that's happening that has really been impacting negatively on our economy has been the cutting off of immigration. Because if Trump had known that he couldn't open the doors of the hotel without immigrants in the back of house, he might have thought different, but probably not. But when I first started, there were people in the fields. Very frankly now, in a lot of those fields, I've got autonomous tractors. They're running with GPSs driving them. They don't need the same things. So what are your legislators doing? What is happening in your schools? And what are they are your schools trying to address the needs of today's economy? I think one of the things, to give you a story of what recently happened with me, is one of the senators from Republican on my committee came to me and said, Senator Wellman, I'd like to run a bill. Great, I want to work with you. What's the bill about? Parents' Bill of Rights. Now you and I know what the hell that was all about. That was a platform to be able to lay that in. And I said, that sounds like a really great idea. Let me think about that and get back to you. I went back to my team. I said, I want to know every right that a parent has in the state of Washington as far as education is concerned. And I came back the next day and I said, you know, I didn't even realize the number of rights that we have. We have so many rights. The problem is they're all over the place. They're on the website here, they're on this website, they're on that website. Here are 4 single blind pages of rights that parents have in the state of Washington. You know what the problem is? You can't find them. They're all over the place. So what we're going to do, and I said, I'm going to tell everybody this was your idea. This is great. We're going to create one button so that you can press that button and you want to know your rights. You can know all about every curriculum, first grade, second grade, third grade, all the way through. It's all posted. And I'm sure it is in your states as well. You want to know that parents have the right to sit in a classroom? They do. They can find out about that. We have the Office of the Ombuds. If you have a problem, here's where you find it. You just don't know your rights. So thank you very much. We're going to do that instead of your bill. And that's what we're doing. So, you know, it was his big bubble there. I want to talk about this. Just take it down to a little thing, and this is what we're going to do. We also did a lot on the Open Public Meetings Act, which is a really good thing, but as you know, during COVID, we've had, literally, I could show you a 3-ring binder that was how to disrupt, literally how to disrupt a public meeting, and specifically the school board meetings. So we passed a bill that prohibits open carry in school boards because it is intimidating. People coming in with guns is somewhat intimidating. You don't have free speech. Making sure, but because of COVID, some of the meetings were in the school, but some of the meetings were in other places. So we had to finesse that whole bill to make sure that we want a place where people can come express their opinions and feel safe and not feel threatened. Sitting on the floor of the Senate, I've had people scream at me, "Wellman, we'll get you!" I mean, but at least they weren't carrying guns. So we want them to, we also want to make sure, and in many of your places, because we're America, I have in my school districts over 100 languages. So we want to make sure that we reach out at least to half a dozen languages. So a lot of the information that we're getting out there in licenses. Again, another story, tell me I know, I don't want to go too long. Another story was CRT, critical race theory. Oh my God. Somebody, it doesn't matter, let's use that. CRT, it sounds really horrible. And so literally the senator from Indiana at one of our meetings said, there's a lot of talk about this social emotional learning, SEL, social emotional learning. You know why we need social emotional learning? Because we have CRT, and that makes white people feel bad. And so then we need to, help them out. So, first of all, that's what we deal with, guys. So first of all, teachers are there to give your kids what they need, to make them feel good about themselves. I had the opportunity to listen to America's Teacher of the Year. Such a wonderful woman, talked about how she makes children feel invited in, bring who you are to the space wherever you're coming from. One of the things that I talk about, I said, critical race theory, people talking about history here, and we do have a lot of misinformation. Columbus discovered America like nobody was living here before. There were a lot of people living here already when Columbus came to the islands, and he didn't discover America, and even people from other places had come here already. But you know what he did? He did something amazing. He said, first of all, the world isn't flat. You're not going to fall off if you go in that direction. And he found that there was trade routes and opened trade routes. And that should be, let's give, Portugal, Spain, thank you for funding it. Italian, let's give them credit, for sending us Columbus. But let's talk about what he really did, because that's worthy. But let's talk about the facts. And so real history has value, and each and every child has value. And that's how we have been working on critical race theory. So just FYI, my time is up. I think that what I can urge you to do is get involved with getting your legislators to understand what is happening, find out bills that are happening in other states. And I'm here for the day, so I'm happy to talk to anybody offline. Love to talk to you personally about what you might do. Thank you.
Great, we have plenty of time now for a discussion. Oh, is Leon back? I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Leon?
Unmute.
Hi, I'm back. I want to follow up on the critical race theory thing. Just for a second. In the taxes, among the things that people can teach.
Leon?
Wait, Leon, you were on the phone before and that worked better?
We're not going to start all over.
Can you amplify your
Leon, could you turn off the video?
They're not video.
Yeah,
Okay, that seems better.
Get closer to the microphone.
Yeah, close to the
The
microphone.
Texas legislature, which is sort of an incubator for that group of voting.
No, Leon, I'm sorry, Leon,
Yes.
I don't know how to correct it.
Use the phone.
I think you're
Anyone using the phone.
Dial in.
Phone in.
Just phone in.
Okay, phone into where?
To your phone.
Well, that, we were told doesn't work.
Phone into your personal phone. Your phone into the microphone.
Yes, and we were told that that doesn't work.
So when he received the invite to join the call, there's a phone number he can join by.
He couldn't find that.
He couldn't find that, so if
It
you call him
wasn't
on
in
your
his
private
email.
phone, it'll be
No,
far worse
it-
than this. Because you're
Yes.
trying to amplify with the microphone, something coming off your speakerphone, it's simply not going to
That's the only option though,
If you
Dave,
could
because
get
he
next
doesn't
to
have the
his
link.
microphone.
Okay, so you can
Try
try
it,
that.
Larry.
Try,
You will not be
Try
able
to have him call you.
when we
okay, we're going to try,
We will
Leon.
no longer have captions.
Yeah.
Except
Okay,
that is the
we're going to try, if you call into my number, I'll put it up to the microphone, we're going to try that. Not sure that that's going to work. You still have my number?
The other thing is,
How about two can come along?
Okay, let's do one thing at a time, okay? I know we're Antiochians and we've got 14 different opinions here, but let's try this one thing. Okay? Okay.
Two cans.
Okay. Hello?
Hello?
He needs to mute himself.
Okay, yes, mute your computer and talk into the phone.
And share his screen.
You can't do both of those things.
Sure.
So put your phone on speaker.
Okay?
Phone on speaker.
Larry, your phone on speaker.
It is. Okay, try it. Okay, try it now.
Now's the time for all good men to come.
Yes.
Yeah, that's value.
Turn the volume up. Volume up, please.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes.
Turn it off, speaker. Make sure to mute yourself.
The speaker is on the phone of your phone, just bring the phone.
Quickly reviewing state law in Texas. No teacher can discuss the concept that the advent of slavery was central to the founding of the country. I'm sorry, you can't teach U.S. history. No teacher can discuss slavery and racism as, quote, anything other than deviations from, betrayals of, or failures to live up to our founding ideals. That's an illustration of what we're up against. I live in Adams County. I shut my computer off. Can you still hear me?
Yes. Yes, much better.
Okay. We reflect really a national trend, which is in education as well as in the political sphere. The Democratic Party has been badly out-organized by the Republicans for the last 20 years. In the Obama administration, we lost a net of something like 1,000 state assembly seats across the country. Adams County, where I live, I had the experience of teaching in the second largest district in the state of Virginia. It was building its 14th high school when I retired, Prince William County Schools. Adams County, Pennsylvania, the home of Gettysburg, has a population of 100,000 and 6 independent school districts. It's a very red county. The registration is 2-to-1 Republican. One thing about small districts is it's easy to run for the school board. It's also, they're very vulnerable to pressure. The school district does not have a lot of resources. Our district in particular is kind of a nutty area. I'm sure you've heard of Doug Mastriano.
Oh, yeah.
He's our state senator, and yes, it really is as bad as you hear. The Democratic Party locally is very weak. Most local races are no Democratic candidate to run for the supervisor, any of those offices. In the 2021 election, the Gettysburg Area School District has a 9-member school board. 4 of those seats were up for election in 2021. There was a conservative slate of the local chair of Moms for Liberty, the owner of the largest gun store in town, and the owner of a police and paramilitary training academy. They at least made it very clear where they were coming from. Those 3 all were elected. The Democratic slate included one incumbent who was a good school board member, narrowly lost. The second was a retired college professor who didn't even know how to answer a question in a forum. And the third was a guy who didn't campaign. None of them were elected. The 4th seat was taken by sort of your traditional school board member. You know, an amateur, a guy who's just a good citizen, not particularly partisan. The carryover 5 seats had one right-winger already. The others, you're kind of, again, your typical small-town school board member. So 4 of the 9 are highly conservative. It turned out, in practical terms, they did not quite have a consistent working majority this year. They spent much of the year they spent much of the year arguing about face masks. And much of the year kind of figuring out what their powers were. They didn't do an awful lot of harm. The other 5 seats will be up for election next year, and we know for a fact there will be a strong slate of conservatives running there. I'm part of a small group of people. I'm the local co-chair of an organization called Democracy for America, which is a grassroots national group. Some of the people I'm involved with are DFA members. Others are just people who are concerned about education, including the recent school board member I mentioned who was narrowly defeated. The most important thing you can do, I think, is just establish a cadre of board watchers. A lot of this is the old-fashioned, pick and shovel work of local politics. You need to be at board meetings. They do stream them, so if you miss the meeting, you can at least catch up on what happened. But it's important to be there. One of the virtues of a small town is the members are approachable. The school district I taught in, the superintendent of schools was sort of like a cabinet officer. The superintendent of schools here is a person who has, one secretary between him and the world. So the importance of being at the meetings is you approach the members, you talk to them, you let them know there are other points of view than what they're hearing from Moms for Liberty. We have gotten involved in other activities as well. Several of us were appointed by the school district to their strategic planning committee. Important to keep in mind in the school board takeovers, the school district may be an ally or may not. People who go into education tend to be a little on the liberal side. The big question is, are they supporting their teachers? The Moms for Liberty in our district took off after one particular teacher, by happenstance, the single teacher in our school district who's of color, but she was singled out as, being proponent of critical race theory because she had signed a petition for Howard Zinn education. The district kind of let her, they didn't put her on a discipline or anything like that, but they kind of let her twist slowly in the wind. They did not instantly leap to her defense. Again, in a small town, if you're blessed to have a daily newspaper, which we are, you have much better access to local media than you would if you lived in, for example, Washington, D.C., where I spent most of my professional career. Getting a letter published in the Washington Post is a big event. If you send a letter to them on a timely issue, the chances are probably less than 1% will get published. In small towns, you have local media available to you. Letters to the editor, op-eds, etc. And it's important to take full advantage of that. I found, again, living in a small town, I've had occasions where literally I give my name to a clerk at a store and they say, oh, you're the person who writes all those columns for the Gettysburg Times. The stuff gets read. So it is important to use your time and communicate well. Speaking at any kind of local civic group, churches, Rotary, anything like that, they do tend to be somewhat conservative, but they're not looking to create over-politicized schools. Our plan, this year, our activity was mainly just like the faction on the school board, getting organized and getting our feet on the ground. Next year, we're going to make a concerted effort, either under the auspices of DFA or the local party, we're not sure which, to really just get to work rebuilding the local political infrastructure for the left. One problem with difficulty finding candidates is, if you're thinking of running in a red district to begin with, so it's an uphill struggle, and you don't have a political organization of your own, it can be a daunting experience just to gather the signatures on petitions. So if we can reconstitute a donor base, organizers, and volunteers, my organization used to do candidate training. We're looking to resume that. We think that should make it easier to recruit bottom-up political candidates. Necessary is early to create a really strong slate of candidates for the local school board. There will be, as I said, 5 seats up. We'd probably rather have 3 strong candidates than a full slate with a couple who are just names on a ballot. But that needs to start. Traditionally, school board campaigns don't really get underway until really a week or 2 before the primary, which in Pennsylvania is in May. And then they tend to go dormant again until September. We're planning to really get organized and get that slate out, being visible early in the year.
We lost Mary's microphone.
I want to mention one particular, the attack on public schools, in part right now, the Republican Party has a strategy, use wedge issues just to fire the base up. The governor's race this past year in Virginia was entirely run on wedge issues, basically Youngkin, and for the most part, educational wedge issues. He asserted that, critical race theory was being taught in a widespread basis in schools, and really made an issue of the parent control of curriculum, which is one of those ideas, if you don't stop and think about it, makes some sense, and then you say, wait a minute, that's, I can tell my biology teacher my child shouldn't have to do dissection. I can tell the math teacher my child shouldn't have to learn times tables. But unfortunately, the Democratic candidate for governor of Virginia responded very poorly, and Youngkin was very successful with that. But the attack on schools also goes back. The report, A Nation at Risk, which was done under the first Bush administration, really created the notion that our schools are failing. First began to cite the sort of somewhat bogus international comparisons. We ranked, 15th in math. If Finland was teaching multilingual population with Spanish speakers, Arabic speakers, etc., they too would have lower test scores. I mean, much of the apparent problem is just the diversity of our schools and the educational challenge. But that notion took root. No Child Left Behind added the concept of high-stakes tests. And that has been a cross that the educational system has been bearing ever since, because if test scores are in any way disappointing, it furthers the argument that our schools are failing and therefore we need to try something else.
Leon?
Auditing charters, etc.
Leon, I'm sorry to... Leon, I'm sorry to cut in, but we have about 2 minutes left.
We can extend, we don't have lunch till 11:30, so we could go another 15 minutes.
Okay, yes, if you could wrap it up in about 5 minutes, that would be good.
That's easy.
Okay, 11.
The main case, basically, they ruled that if the state provides funding for private schools, they cannot deny funding to religious schools. That is a major opening. They broadly signaled that, in future cases, like Clarence Thomas on the Roe case invited people to submit cases on gay marriage and related issues. The Supreme Court is likely to be ruling favorably on restoring school prayer fully and also funding for religious schools. We're dealing with a very challenging environment for education, both on a local level and nationally. But as Lisa said, my message would be the salvation of our schools begins locally, and the most important thing is for people to get involved with their local school systems. And with that, I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Take 15 minutes.
Okay.
Questions? I recall that the problem with, say, creationism That didn't start in the 80s. Richard Biggery and his address lists in the 70s, and the moral majority and all that. The Republicans have always been electing to school boards, the Democrats have not. We got creationism into our textbooks because if you can't publish in Texas, you don't publish a textbook.
Yes.
And that didn't start in the 80s, 90s, anything else. It goes back to the 70s when the Democrats, we stopped the Vietnam War, and then we sat down and just paid attention to the midterms, the elections. No one did anything about the school boards. So it's not new, and that's how we got creationism, and that's where.
And that goes back, the fact that Texas produces the textbooks goes back to the business of education.
Right. Yeah.
During the 1970s and before, I worked for the National Education Association, and I worked on the Duchesne Defense Fund, which is a fund for the defense of teacher rights.
Can you speak up?
It's a fund for teacher rights in the National Education Association, and we funded litigation to support teachers who spoke out and were fired because they expressed an opinion that the board didn't like or something of the sort. Somewhere buried in the records of the National Education Association has to be the record of all the litigation they funded and or were aware of that dealing with teacher rights, and also there's a lot of information on student rights, like the armbands case in New York, which also relates directly to what could go on in a classroom.
If I can, I just want to, because this is important, we're in a place now where we're coming up with the midterms. Let's get real about where we are right now and what we have to do. And certainly, you know, it's all about, right now, it's all about get out the vote, for one thing. But I will tell you that we've done some polling, and it's kind of, I don't want us to be Democrats who say, well, it's a midterms, we're going to lose some seats, you know, kind of it happened. It does not have to happen. 70% of the people in the United States were for Roe v. Wade, and they are pissed as hell. I can tell you, I'm on the Women's Commission. I founded the Women's Commission in the state of Washington, and those women, me included, are just so angry and plotting what we can do. But we can use the fact that McConnell's not happy about the fact, the headline in the Washington Post the other day said, the GOP fears that they will lose seats in the Senate in the midterms. That can happen. We have had, last year in 2021, we had 34 school shootings. Multiple shootings in schools. This year we're at 27 to date. They're expecting we'll go higher than we did last year. These are, you've seen and heard about the pictures that have come out, you know, about. This is something that we have got to come down on. Americans are not happy about the fact that our school kids, when my grandson says to me, Nana, it's not if, it's when. We cannot have an America that allows kids to feel that way about being in school. It is really horrible. And now the EPA, let's talk about drinking water and what it does to kids when in Michigan that water is poisoned. If we're going to go back to that, where kids can have permanent brain damage, we've got to be talking about these things for every race. It's not particular to a single race. We've just got to not give in and say we're going to lose seats. We can gain seats. We need to gain seats. I am just so thankful that I am in a state legislature, because I would not, I couldn't at this age, I couldn't take what goes on in DC. I don't know how they get up every day and fight the fight. The other thing I will say also about charters, which is really, you know, I think interesting, I was solicited to put my money in a charter because you can double your money in 10 years. It is good business, and it should not be, but even more important is, are they auditing the charters? We have to audit our schools. It turns out in one of our charter systems, we limited it. The state of Washington said, okay, you're gonna go with charters, but you can only have this many, and they have to be formed within 10 years, and then that's it. And they, like all of our schools, are audited with how they spent their money. Well, it turned out that in one charter district, that 56 of the teachers did not have Washington State certifications. They may have had certifications elsewhere, I don't know what, but they were not fit to, in the state of Washington, and so we're taking back the money that we paid out in that. Demand charters of your, demand audits of your charter schools, make sure that that's happening, and find out what's happening, and make, blast it out there. So there's a lot of ways that we really can come at this, but most of all, right now, get out the vote and get these idiots out of here.
I'd like to say
DC,
something.
I just wanted to throw 2 points out. Number one, in Washington, DC, you do not have to be certified to teach in charter schools. And number two, that I want to go back to something that somebody said about NEA. I worked for NEA also for 9 years, and I also worked for the AFT. And
They supported a lot of the litigation too.
yes, and the point is, one, aside from talking to your elected legislators, we should be talking to the teachers' unions. They get a bad rap. We are told that they are anti-parent. We are told that they are anti-reform. That's not entirely untrue, but they are one of the mainstays against the takeover of schools right now. And if we involve them in the discussions, we will have a very important ally. I'm sorry.
I was just going to add that in West Virginia, you do not have to be certified to teach in a charter school. And also, there was a debate about funding money to those who homeschool children. But one of our judges put a halt to that, as well as the charter schools, because of accountability. So thank you for accountability.
If I can elaborate a little bit, that there was a recent court decision in West Virginia. We do have a constitutional right to a free public education, what the legislature is required to provide. The legislature adopted a scheme where money can be taken from those funds and paid to people, parents who are not going to public school. They're going to charters, they're homeschooling, they're online schooling and so on. And a circuit court judge, trial level judge, recently last week ruled that unconstitutional for 2 reasons. One, you're taking that money away, so it's not incremental. There's a size component. When you teach 27, if you take away 3, you're losing that economy of scale there. So she said that's not providing the free education on the grounds it's supposed to be. Secondly, she ruled there's no accountability. There were no standards for what these schools had to do or to produce. So that will be appealed to our state Supreme Court, 2 of whom were appointed as political hacks, in my opinion. We'll see what happens. But that's the type of battle that the legislatures are trying to wage against public schools. And the teachers' union were the plaintiffs in that case. So they brought it.
Yeah. Yes.
Adrian,
Adrian?
Thank you. Thank you so much for this expose of what's going on in the school system and the boards of education. I had 2 comments. One is that we really do need to involve younger people. All of us in here, many of us are retired, which is great, which means we get time, we have experience, and we don't really care what other people say about us anymore. So, we can do and say what is really on our minds. So that's a big, big positive, but we do need to bring in younger people. I wonder if you have any suggestions about how that can be done, because I'm kind of at my wit's end with that. In the state of Connecticut, also I wanted to make the comment that charter schools have been used more to disintegrate, to support black students. There are many charter schools that are, particularly in disadvantaged neighborhoods, trying to support children who have kind of been disaffected from this public school system. So there are some things that can be good about the charter school system, we have also found that the accountability has been lacking, and that many of these charter schools are below what our expectations should be, especially in Connecticut, where we keep saying that we're great, you know, but we do have some very big disadvantages in the school system.
And the accountability is really, really important. The other second charter school system that was appealing exactly to various groups, many black kids, but kids of color, and also children, so disadvantaged economically, disadvantaged because of for special education needs, and coming to school without English language. And what we found in one of these charter schools is that they didn't have any qualified teachers to teach special education. They didn't have qualified teachers to teach English as a second language, et cetera, et cetera. So when you're dealing with vulnerable populations, it is twice as challenging. It's twice as challenging, but it is twice as disgusting, really, that they have not met. You're reaching out to people saying that you can help them specifically as a charter school, and then you're not. So the audits are, I think, really, really important to make sure that happens. I'm glad to say that in our Constitution in the state of Washington, and trust me, I never thought I'd wind up in Washington, but anyhow, our Constitution has education as our paramount duty. It accounts for more than half the budget.
Welcome to the Antioch reunion. We're talking about a lot of national issues, and I'm just thinking about this group of alumni here. The first president of Antioch was Horace Mann, who was critical in terms of developing public education for all in this country. I mean, I don't know all the details about Horace Mann. If he died, I don't think he should be ashamed for anything, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. But, we should have an award, Horace Mann Award, for a person who furthers the goals of, and it could be an alumni, it could be anybody in the country, but to utilize Antioch College's just historical, back to the roots, commitment to expanding on the power of public education. So I would vote for that.
And I think we can take one more question.